Hello, this is Brian Foster on Kardec Radio, presenting the program Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us.
Hello, today is Sunday, April 29th, 2018, and we are bringing to you an exciting program tonight, Angels on Earth. And it's all part of the section of my book, Spirits and the Spirit Universe. All the information I wrote from Vale Owen when he did his wonderful set of books. You can find 4 of his books in Beyond the Veil. In all of this section, and I talked about episode 1 last Sunday. This Sunday is episode 2, and we're going to begin with Angels on Earth as high spirits talk to him about how angels are on Earth. And we'll explore what he said and what even Allan Kardec first talked about angels and pure spirits, I should say. So let's get right into it. Now, first of all, before I do that, remember, I am Brian Foster, bringing to you via Kardec Radio. Kardec Radio is, you can put that on your iPhone or Android phone. You can look up in the Play Store or your App Store, and you just type in Kardec Radio, and you can download that for free and get spiritist programs 24 hours a day. And also remember, there's live streaming on the Facebook page, Kardec Radio. I live stream, other people live stream. There's many other people, they do a great job, and it's all in English. And so if anyone's interested in Spiritism, go to Kardec Radio Facebook page, ask questions. A lot of people answer them. You can also go to my Facebook page, Spirits in the Spirit World Around Us. You can find information there. Go to my blog site, nwspiritism.com, and there's you can always contact me. I have a contact. You can email me, like many people do. They email me questions, or they go onto my Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us, and they will message me through Facebook message too if they have questions. So I'm always happy to help anyone who is interested in Spiritism, because it is a marvelous doctrine and it is the third revelation. So let's get right into it. So when reading about the visits of angels on earth recorded in the Old Testament, and then the story of the New Testament and the phenomenon which occurred during the times of Jesus, one could think that thousands of years spanning from Abraham to Jesus was the peak of angels coming to earth. The Reverend Vale Owen, who communicated with high spirits in the early 1900s, was involved with a high spirit named Zabdiel, who broached the subject of angels on earth. Now, he spoke of angels living in higher spheres, in the upper levels of heaven, where spirits are less dense than spirits below them, and considerably of a different composition than we are on earth. While in our physical form, we are mostly matter and some energy. This ratio lessens and then reverses in the higher level. And according to Allan Kardec, these are what pure spirits are. And this is in question 112 under the general characteristics. Now, this is the book, right? Spirit's book. This is the headwaters of the Spiritist doctrine. So I recommend everyone, if they can, either you can buy this book on the Spiritist website, which I have. If you go to my blog, nwspiritism.com, and click on his picture up on the top right-hand corner, you go right to the bookstore. And you can also buy these on Amazon.com, or put those in your search engine, Allan Kardec, space PDF, and you'll find his books on PDF. So that's how I found Spiritism. Didn't cost a penny. So question 112, general characteristics. This is according to Allan Kardec, the codifier of Spiritism. The influence of matter null, a superiority, both intellectual and moral, so absolute as to constitute what, in comparison with the spirits of all other orders, may be termed perfection. Allan Kardec called them first order pure spirits. Others called them pure spirits or angels. Pure spirits no longer have the need to incarnate. They have no blemishes to remove in a world of atonement. We are living on a world of atonement. This is where chaos reigns. This is where we have to go through hard trials. Although free of paying off past debts and gaining new experiences, they are not idle. They are the messengers and ministers of God, according to Allan Kardec. These pure spirits are sent on important missions to Earth or to other planets, rarely in physical form, but in spirit form. Zabdal tells us that an angel coming to Earth is like a deep sea diver, submersing thousands of fathoms in order and to attempt to talk to the life forms residing in a hostile environment. A pure spirit requires a support group to assist them in their mission, just like a diver requires a group on the surface to monitor all vital signs. Zabdal also tells us about how and why angels come to Earth. Now, this is a quote from him as in one of his messages to the Reverend G. Vale Owen. Some are there who ask why angels do not come in plenty nowadays, as in olden times. Here are many errors in few words and too preeminent. For first, angels of high estate did never come in plenty to the earth plane, but one here and another there amid the ages, and those were accounted worthy of a forward place in the annals of great events. Angels do not in this wise come to earth and visibly appear, except it be on some very rare and special commission. This were an extension of our difficult task. First, we must get the diver. First, the diver get to the dark and very deep waters, and then must he so condition himself that he become visible to those nearly blind creatures on the ocean floor. So, what's Zabdal talking about? He's citing a difficult task, very difficult, and his description is mirrored in an example of the book "Workers of the Life Eternal." This is one of the books by Andre Louis, the Spirit Andre Louis, psychographed by Chico Xavier. And in that book, there's a chapter detailing the events when a guest speaker from a higher order world gave a lecture to the spirits in No Solar. Now, ordinarily, this is not a mystery. The speaker arrives and speaks, but this instance was different. So this happened in chapter 3, and the name of the chapter was The Sublime Visitor. And the strangest did not lie in the topic. And remember, Zabdal's talking about coming to our physical plane on earth. And now, in this chapter on Workers of the Life Eternal, Andre Louis is talking about just coming to the very low levels of heaven in the spirit world. Even that is difficult for a very high spirit. Remember, No Solar is located in one of the lower rungs of heaven, and it's just above Rio de Janeiro. So, and he opens this chapter with talking of a speech by a visiting spirit by describing a modest, well-lit room that had on one side a small chamber made of substance similar to clear, transparent glass. And Andre is told why the chamber is required. This is what he was told. In the meeting with us, the Father's messengers exercise sacrifice and self-denial. They endure the vibratory shocks of our lower planes. They retake the form they abandoned long ago. They humble themselves to be like us. So Andre is told the same story as Zabdal tells Reverend Vale Owen. Higher order spirits are fundamentally different. Hence, descending to lower levels of spirituality takes time and effort. Andre is given an explanation of why such a journey is challenging. This is what he was told. It is vital to abide by a steadfast attitude of serenity and respect. Such an environment provides the foundation for the emission of pure energies. And for that reason, we will hold all fellow spirits present responsible for any unharmonious minutiae in the work to be accomplished. So he's telling them, okay, everybody in the audience, you need to harmonize yourself, to have good vibrations, good thoughts. This is all fits into what we've been told before by Allan Kardec, Chico Xavier, and by G. Vale Owen. The higher the spirit, the more pure energy, with either very small or no traces of matter, and the spirit is more tuned to God's love. As spirits ascend, they undergo a metamorphosis. Not only does their character become pure, of course, that's not just like magically, they work for that, just like we are working to help ourselves here on earth going through our trials, but their body increases in brightness due to the reflection of love and force. High order spirits have great power to affect change with thought alone. So these things are important because I am talking about everybody's future on earth. It may take a long time, for me probably a very long time, but eventually everybody will get to where I am talking about now. It could be millions of years. So then Henri Louis was part of this audience, and the audience was instructed to fill the chamber with an artificial environment, with still waters, a robust tree, and with the vegetation leaves on the tree. Now, the speaker who was invited was Asclepios. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but that's his name. Sounds like a Greek name. He appeared wearing a lily white cloak. He had an old man's face and a halo of light. And then Henri further describes his appearance. We could only see the upper portion of his body, giving me the impression that his lower part was naturally hidden in the abundant vegetation. His arms and hands, though, were revealed in all their minute detail, because with his right hand he blessed us with a wide gesture, while holding in his other hand a small roll of radiant parchments, allowing us to see a golden cord tied to his waist. So after the speech, Henri wished to know more about this man, and he was told the following. He goes, he belongs, so this is the very high spirit, he belongs to the redeemed committees of the plane of the immortals in the highest regions of Earth's spiritual realm. He lives far above our notions of form and in conditions that are inconceivable to our current concept of life. He has already lost all direct contact with the earth per se, and could only make himself felt there through messengers and missionaries of great power. His sacrifice in coming to visit us is to be appreciated. Despite our improved position in relation to incarnate humans, he rarely comes here. However, at times, other mentors of the same category visit us out of fraternal mercy. So Henri then finds out that the spirit, like Asclepios, will only reincarnate on Earth every 5 to 8 centuries. Then Henri asks if he is the highest spiritual form to be found in the universe. And this is what he is answered. Not at all. He is associated with other self-denying mentors of terrestrial humankind. He is part of the highest echelon of the community to which he belongs. But in reality, he is still a spirit of our planet, although working in the highest realms of life. We must travel for a long time in the evolutionary arena before we can follow in his footsteps. However, we believe that our sublime visitor longs to be part of the board of representatives of our orb and the glorious communities that inhabit Jupiter and Saturn. For example, in turn, the members of those orbs anxiously await the moment in which they will be summoned to the divine assemblies that govern our entire solar system. Among these latter are those who carefully and watchfully await the minute in which they will be called to work with those who maintain the constellation Hercules, to whose family we belong. Those who guide our group of stars naturally aspire one day to make up the crown of celestial spirits who support life and guide it in the galactic system through which we move. And did you know, my friend, that our Milky Way, a breeding ground, a fount of millions of worlds, is just one single detail of the divine creation, a mere corner of the universe? So what does that tell us? This very high spirit had a high position in our solar system, but there are plenty of positions above him in command of our universe. Zabdal's metaphor of the diver is clear when paired with the information given about a high spirit such as Asclepios. He is at least a very high order spirit, if not a pure spirit. He exists in a plane and dimension we can't comprehend. He may be one of the angels that Zabdal talks about when he says angels only come periodically in physical form to our planet. And the speech that this high spirit gave is not known to us. Henri Louis declined to record it. Henri thus describes what he heard and why he would not translate it. This is what he said. In a clear, attractive voice, the emissary wished us the peace of Christ, and then spoke to us in a tone that could not be defined in human language. Heeding the imperatives of my conscience, I will refrain from rendering my incomplete and imperfect translation. But Henri did enlighten us about the questions and answers after the speech, and when one of the spectators raised a question, Asclepios brought out one of the parchments that contained a Bible verse to answer the question, and when the questioner pressed for more, this high spirit only enlarged on the verse that he had already displayed. There was no real interaction with the assembly. Here's one example. And this is how Henri describes it. He says, Sister Lucania, who was part of our small group, spoke up and added, Enlightened mentor, this is the first time I'm going down to earth on a more clearly defined spiritual aid mission. Could you perchance provide me with the guidance I need? And so this very high spirit, the emissary, who seemed to have brought biblical answers that he had prepared beforehand, unfolded another sheet, and surprised, we read 1 Thessalonians verse 4-9, by the apostle to the Gentiles. And this is what it said. But as for fraternal charity, I have no need to write to you, since you have been taught by God that you are to love one another. Then Henri Louis further says, I'm somewhat confused. Look down and respectively remark, I see. Practically applied, the messenger politely commented. The word teaches us to improve resources of the good in the most difficult of situations. So when I read this whole part within Henri Louis's books, Psychograph by Chico Xavier, the answer sounded pre-recorded, only marginally associated with the questions given. So my impression, my theory, and I could be totally wrong, is that Acephalus could not interact with the crowd because he exists in such a higher level that direct communication would be difficult. He could probably see the span of states in the lower level of heaven, meaning a wider view of the past, present, and future, because as we've been told, the higher you go, the more you see, the span of time that you see down here on our physical plane, because of course there's no time in the spiritual plane. One that allowed him to know the questions beforehand, but not to interact on a spontaneous level. The higher the spirit, the more apt they are to discern the fourth dimension. They are able to see beforehand and after any event on a broader scale than those on the pecking order below them. Whereas we on the physical plane live life in 3 dimensions, right? Length, height, and width, with time continuously marching on. The higher spirits, the more they're able to see not only 3 dimensions, but the 4th only. We can't see in the future. Spirits above us can see a little ways into the future, and so on and so on. The higher the spirit, the wider the range of seeing an object over a span of time. So now let's get back to Zabdal, what he told the Reverend G. Vale Owen. This is what's so interesting, because remember, everything the Reverend G. Vale Owen has told us, well, not everything, it adds to and it's complementary to the Spiritist literature I read coming from people like Chico Xavier, Yvonne Pereira, Devaldo Franco, all these great mediums, Leon Denis, and from G. Vale Owen, we're just taught more and more. It's very interesting. That's why this is probably one of the most exciting series, books that I read. And that's why I wrote these 3 books, Heaven and Below, Spirits in the Spirit Universe, and How Spirits Guide Us. And all these books are all categories. I put in categories everything that had pertaining to what G. Vale Owen revealed to us. So what we can see is we can read these things and we can really go through and get a good understanding of the processes and how the spirit world works. Now, a perfect understanding, am I correct as far as my interpretation? Probably not. But at least we are getting hints much more than we ever had before. Because remember, anyone who, very few of us were lucky enough to be raised in Spiritist families. Those who aren't, we always had like a fuzzy definition of, what happens after death, what's heaven like? And it's always, there's this ethereal, Elysian plane, right? But now we're being told really what's going on and how you never, ever stop. You always rise. You're always learning. So let's go back to the Zabdal. So he says, no, we work for men and are present with them, but in other ways than this, according to rule and varying methods as each task requires. And this is the second error made, because he's talking about G. Vale Owen, and the errors made by us here as humans, how we think of angels, right? The wings and always a nice smile. Of course, the nice smiles, I'm sure, is there. For we are present and do come to earth continually. But in that word come, more lies hidden than I may reveal. For even those on this side in the spheres between us and you do not understand yet our powers and the ways of their using, but only in part as they learn in the course of their progress. And so let it rest thus. There's so much information. Some of these things are so dense, and then it's just exciting. So angels continually come to earth. We may not see or feel their presence, but they are here and they always arrive for a purpose, always for an honorable cause, of course. The help may seem strange at times to our short lives, but the end game is a constant. Angels help us individually and collectively to advance towards a goal of self-improvement, not in material wealth, but in spiritual wealth, the only kind that does not disappear with time. Now, let's talk about the word come. And this is where I've seen other hints, and there's other calls, and I talk about this in my book, and in the pertinent sections. But really is what they're telling us. And there was a section in the book about Jesus coming to earth, after the resurrection. And he came into the house in Jerusalem with the apostles there. And what one of the high spirits said to Reverend G. Vale Owen goes, you can't think that Jesus came there. So, so think about come and came, how they both use it here. He goes, Jesus, what he did is he thought himself in a different state. And then in that state, and I'm simplifying it a bit, in that state, he appeared in that room. And then when he left, he thought himself in a different state. Now, I think this is one of the reasons. Now, this was done in the 1910s, and I'm sure this whole concept, and there's other concepts in here that were, I could tell that G. Vale Owen goes, what are you talking about? But now that we are more, that we've gotten into computers, the cloud, data everywhere, right? Data pervasive, right? Data follows you. It's letting us understand how much we are in a logical universe. You could call some people call it the hologram, right? We're in the hologram. We're in a logical construct where, we think that's a wall, but that's, because we're told it's a wall, right? That's what we think, but it's like we're in the middle of a video game. And that's the only way you can explain, and maybe there's different ones right now. It's the only way I can explain, I should say, is that how can you say come is not like coming is not like you're traveling long distance, right? You have to think of it as a video game where a character comes, right? Now, on that video game, you could say it comes from one city to another city. But really what we know is the data behind it and the programming behind it just takes that character and puts him in the state of being in from one location A to location B. And I believe that is kind of the fundamental way of our universes. So now let's talk about the transmission of spiritual power. This is another great thing, because look, this is how we are all going to be. Let me get some water here. Now, as I said before, spirits create by thought. God created the spirit and physical universes by thought. High spirits carried on the work of God by forming solar systems, planets, and life on Earth. How does thought transform into concrete action? How does an idea guide a planet or change the destiny of a single human? This is what's so exciting. Zabdiel presents how the spark of an idea affects matter in a chapter called The Science of Heaven. And Zabdiel is a spirit who sent a stream of communications to Reverend G. Vale Owen from November 3rd, 1913 to January 8th, 1914. And all were published in the book I was talking about, The Life Beyond the Veil. And this is all in book 2, called The Highlands of Heaven. And first, Zabdiel defines what he means by the use of word energy. Now think of this, when you hear the word energy, I believe that what spiritists usually call that, they would be called universal fluid. Now the name's a little bit different, right? And because remember, G. Vale Owen knew nothing about Spiritism, at least not that he ever wrote. He may have known about consciously, but I do not know. He never wrote the word Spiritism. He wrote the word spirituality and spiritual, but not Spiritism. Yet everything he has that I've read conforms to the doctrine of Spiritism. He had no idea Chico Xavier would soon, be born around the time he was writing this. So this is what Zabdiel says. Energy, as I now employ the word, is to be understood as that intermediary which couples up the motion of the will with the effect as displayed in the minds of men. We here are trained to this end that we may, by motions of our will, transmit by what we call vibration our thoughts through the intervening spheres or states into the earth plane. It is this movement and vibration which I call energy. Now, the spirit universe rests upon cosmic energy platform called by Spiritism, as I said before, universal fluid. And from this flows all forms of matter. The will of a spirit is able to modify the vibrational states and structure of universal fluid. Zabdal explains further. When I use the term vibration, I do not speak merely of oscillation to and fro alone, but of movements which are sometimes elliptical, sometimes spiral, and sometimes a combination of these and other qualities. Remember, I talked before about the spiral progress and how they have everything on the spiral progress. And this is kind of, you can also see the whole progress of the human race and Earth is how we go in spirals, right? Sometimes we think we're going backwards, we're just creating a better foundation. Now, Allan Kardec in the Spirits book supplies the definition of matter. This is how Allan Kardec wrote. And not Allan Kardec himself, I should say, he codified communications from what he asked many mediums throughout Europe, and then he only used the answers when he got from several mediums in different geographical locations. Oh, there's Adriana. Hello. So this is how Allan Kardec supplies the definition of matter. Matter is the element which enchains spirit, the instrument which serves it, and upon which at the same time it exerts its action. Fuzzy. But hence the force of mind of a spirit controls and directs matter, and that which facilitates the command of matter by a spirit is universal fluid, or energy as Zabdal defines it. Allan Kardec places universal fluid in the same context as Zabdal when he reported that spirits told him, this is what Allan Kardec said, the material element must be added to the universal fluid which plays the intermediary between spirit and matter, the nature of the latter being too gross for spirits to be able to act directly upon it. Although from another point of view, this fluid may be classed as forming part of the material element. It is, nevertheless, distinguished from that element by certain special properties of its own. It is intermediary between spirit and matter, and under the directing action of a spirit to produce the infinite variety of things which you know as yet but a very small portion. This universal primitive or elementary fluid, being the agent employed by spirit in acting upon matter, is the principle without matter would remain forever in a state of division and would never acquire the properties given to it by the state of ponderability. What's ponderability? Ponderability being the state upon which matter rests as directed by the thoughts of a spirit. Although, as our science understands today, matter is never at rest. It is constantly in motion, vibrating, but to our eyes, it holds constant form and is endowed with certain physical characteristics to our senses. Our current level of discovery, scientific discovery, would agree with Zabdal when he states, from this point of view, the atomic system of vibration, which has been of late been revealed to men of science, this was back in the 1910s, is to us one with the movement of the planets of the solar sphere and of other systems far away in space. The motion of the earth around the sun, the motion of molecules, of atoms are vibrations. It matters not by what degree you measure them or what the diameter of the orbit they are of in one kind, and in degree only do they differ from each other. So what is he saying? Let's try to make this simpler, because this is really what it is they are manipulating by mind. And of course, what we're told in the books by Vale Owen is everything we see is in place because of the will of a spirit. The earth, the solar system, the walls, the table we are is in place because it's held by a will of some sort. So let's talk about this. Picture a rectangle piece of wood, a cube, like a cube. Unseen by our sight, it is a mass of vibrating atoms and molecules. To us, it has weight and it is dense, right? It is wood and it's square because of motions within and the composition of the universal fluid that directs it. It could be a square of metal. It all depends on how that universal fluid was made to go in which directions, and the vibrations and the density, etc. Now, picture what would happen if the atomic elements were commanded to vibrate more rapidly, to alter the shape. The rectangle would no longer be a rectangle, and the wood would transform into another substance. As water changes to steam when heated, matter changes when the energy directed at it by the thoughts of a spirit into something slightly or radically different from which it came. Zabdal explains what matter really is. This is what he says. Matter itself is the result of the transmutation of spiritual vibration into those of the grosser sort. They talk about us. We are the physical universe. We are the grosser sort. And these later are now being analyzed by scientists who have come to the knowledge that matter is indeed the result of vibration, and that no article of matter is still, but in ceaseless movement. And of course, that's what we do say. Even I don't know if they knew it as well as they did back in the early 1900s, but we certainly know that now. That is correct, but not conclusive, for it does not pursue the matter to the end of it. It were truer to say not that matter is in vibration, but that matter is vibration, the result of vibration of a quality more refined, which is found not in the phenomena of material things, but in those spheres proper to its quality. So, hence matter is material waiting to be transformed by spiritual directed energy. Zabdal describes the process of this alteration. Now remember, I'm talking about this is what you will do someday with matter. And remember when I talked about the power of spirits, on episode 1, when Vale Owen's mother was talking to him, and they and a group of people created the statue of an elephant, all by the power of their will. Zabdal is taking us to the next step. He's really taking us to how things are done. This is what he says. But transmutation brings into any such system a change of movement, and the quality of movement being changed, there is also, and of necessity, a change of results. Thus, we, acting always in perfect obedience to laws laid down by those higher and wiser than ourselves, concentrate our wills on the movement of certain vibrations, which become deflected and transmuted into other qualities of vibration, and thus the change is wrought. So, this modification is usually accomplished gradually, deliberately, step by step, until the desired end state is attained. Matter in one state is now in another. And if there was nothing there that we could see, if it was just universal fluid, they would take that and they would change the vibration until something appeared. That's how buildings are created. Everything is created in the spirit realm. From the beginning of slight alterations brought on by the intended plan of a spirit or group of spirits, all is created and guided. Zabdal tells us that from this one process, the singular talent for focusing energy on an object and transforming it, all else follows. This is what he says. It is by this method we deal with the actions of men and the course of nature in all of its parts. There are manifold classes and companies who have in charge the various departments of creation: mineral, vegetable, animal, human, terrestrial, solar, and stellar. Beyond this, also, the stars are grouped together and dealt with by hierarchies qualified for that great task. It is by this, think about what he's saying, and think about what Henri Louis said about, this one high spirit, on this council. Zabdal goes on. It is by this same method, then, of the transmutation of energy that systems are gradually developed into worlds, and these worlds furnished with form, and then enabled to produce vegetation and animal life. But this being so, you will note that all life and all development is consequent on the operation of spiritual energy, obeying the dictates of the will of spiritual beings. This once grasped, blind force disappears and intention takes its place. Intention of intelligent and powerful spiritual workers of various grades operating according to certain fixed laws, but within the bounds of laws free and mighty. So this is really what our science is. We're looking at the results of intentions and intentions within those bounds of divine laws. And we're guessing some and we're not quite sure of others. This is why when, we have to tell ourselves, science is great and human science is getting better all the time. They don't know everything. And there's so much out there and they're still exploring. So hence, when you look up at the night sky, see not random stars built within the confines of chaotic motion of matter spawned by the Big Bang. Instead, see creation as planned, creation as willed by high lords and carried out by a phalanx of lesser spirits. Everything we live upon and are, to the very curvature of our skull and the capabilities of our sight, has been carefully planned. We are the direct result of deliberate objectives directed from on high. Our lives, in the same manner in which our physical form was molded, are guided by the desires of spirits, which may include ourselves while in the spirit realm, in the trials and obstacles we face on earth. So always with our free will intact, to make choices and to suffer either gladly or with remorse, the lessons offered to us. So we too may be part of the cohorts of spirits managing all life in the universe. the knowledge that we live in a world of malleable clay, which alters forms and structure upon command, should give us strength, inner fortitude to understand that the vicissitudes of our life are all to a purpose. Everything we experience is not without meaning, for it's all aimed with love and kindness. Worlds, nations, and races are born, forged by heat, and deteriorate, all for a designed cause. Zabdiel reinforces this vital point. This is what he says. Thus, you will see how little it matters that, when the time comes for you to cast off the body of earth, you stand discarnate. Your earth body was a body of vibrations and no more. Very well, you now have a body of vibrations, more substantial and enduring, because of a higher quality and nearer to the energizing will, which brought it into existence and so sustains it. That body will serve you while you sojourn in the lower spheres, and when you have progress, that body will be transmuted into one still more permanent, in a quality more sublime. This process will be repeated as the ages go by and you proceed from glory to higher glory in the infinite reaches of progress before you. What is we've been told? We are on Earth for a short period in disposable suits, diving suits, right? You could say that, designed to enhance our educational opportunities. Make the most of what comes your way and learn what is presented. Only by suffering through stressful days and putting the good days in perspective can we cultivate the calm and wisdom to ascend. So, let me give you an example of spiritual power. But first, think about what Zabdiel just told us. It's that we are part, we are like these elementary school children just learning about the world, right? This is why we're here. We are training our minds to understand all this. And then when you go in the different levels of heaven, you'll learn more and more and how to manipulate universal fluid for good and to what was directed by higher spirits. Okay, let's talk about an example of spirits. This is here's a great example in the book. It's like a web of light. So the higher the spirit in the hierarchy of heaven, the more power they possess, right? To use their mind to shape and transmute elements. And the ability of high lords to affect objects in the spiritual and physical universe, of course, is vast. Now think, Christ is the high lord who governed us, over us, on our globe and several other planets. And Zabdielin's communications to the Reverend G. Vale Owen supplies a small example of how higher spirits shape the environment around them to do their bidding. So, we talked about how Zabdiel told us how a high spirit manipulates matter. Now let's give an example. So Zabdiel was a part of a group who accompanied a team of spirits who were visitors from another sphere to a lake. And where the spirits were to board boats to journey to their home level of heaven. And during the final words of goodbye, Zabdiel spotted one of the high spirits of his sphere, who Zabdiel called a prince, was approaching by air with his attendants. And Zabdiel tells us that the spirits take pleasure in pleasing others by showing them effects manifested by their creativity. And so this is just like a simple thing to show everybody this is the power coming for you. So this is how Zabdiel explained it. Far up in heaven we saw them as they moved slowly, circling about the prince, from whom to those in circle went threads of vibrations of different quality and so of different color. These he of his will sent forth, and those his subordinates wove a network of curious design, is all in the air and very beautiful, where two threads crossed there. The intensified light shone like a stone of brilliant hue, and the knots were many colors owing to the varying combination of threads entering into their construction. When this was complete, the circle widened out and drew away and left the prince alone in the midst. And he held the net by its middle in his hand, and it floated like this, and it floated around him like a many-colored spider web. It was very beautiful. Now the net was really a system of many qualities of vibrations woven together. He loosed it of his hand, and it began slowly to sink as he rose through it, until it was level with his feet. Then he raised his hands and descended with it, and as he came, he looked through the net at the boats below, and he made slow movements with his hands in their direction. Then they began to move on the water as of themselves, and so combined until they floated in a circle. Then the net descended and settled over them, and we saw that they were all within its circumference. Talk about all the boats. And also that as it lighted upon them, this net kind of went onto the boats. They passed through it and sank, and it nested upon the water. Then the prince, standing on the net and on the water in the midst of the boats, waved his hand in greeting to them, and the net slowly arose from the water, lifting the boats with it and floated upward into the air. So away over the lake they went together, and a company of our sphere closed in around them and sent up a song of Godspeed as they floated away towards the horizon over the lake. So that is a description that we would look when we go, oh my heavens, it's a miracle. You can walk on water, he lifted the boats, right? Of course, Spiritism tells us there's no such thing as miracle. There's always a reason. And this is why to us, I can understand people say, that's, it's a miracle. How some people are healed and other things that's happened because the spirits have the way, high spirits have the way to manipulate universal fluid, to manipulate matter on earth. And that means to make people healthier, to move a rock where Jesus was buried after the crucifixion, and then he disappears into nothing, right? You can't even see his body. And then he reappears. That's not a miracle. That's how the spirit world operates, with using their mind and their wills, and that they can deconstruct and construct matter at will. And for this body that Jesus, when he reconstructed it again after the resurrection, he made it with his will, right? He made it look the same as it when he took on a physical body for that small speck of time he was here on earth. So now you know why you're on earth, to accumulate the required mental discipline, to use your mind for fantastic creations. All for good. No small speck of unadulterated evil could be allowed to reside in the spirit with immense power. Every trial you suffer and emerge a better person is one small step towards climbing the ladder towards perfection, to a future where you can give unlimited love and kindness and help those in need. Remember, we are truly blessed to be here on earth, to go through this school. Now let's talk one last thing here before we end. And this is that growth. Let's talk about the spiritual growth. And people grow at different speeds and different levels. And I saw a lecture by Geraldo Dutra on YouTube, and he was saying that, and he's right. Spiritual growth it's not like a line, like an ever perfect, angled up line. It's more like one of the hockey sticks, right? Because once people, grasp these certain things, then they really start understanding how things work, and then they really grow. And I also want to tell you, to help you on this, besides the books that I have, and you can see all of my books on my website, nwspiritism.com. I also have a YouTube channel. Go to that YouTube channel. All of these lectures I put on the YouTube channel, and I'm creating other ones, 5 to 10 minute short little YouTube videos, answering and explaining certain things about Spiritism. One is why do we have multiple lives? So these may be of interest to you or your friends. Also, please share the articles I put on my blog, or share this Facebook on Kardec Radio Facebook page. Share this streaming. Spread the word. The more we tell people about Spiritism, the better they will be. The more they will be open to learning. So let's talk about learning. So spirits form close friendships in the spirit realm as well as on earth, right? And at times, nothing is more satisfying than being with close friends. In the spirit world, as on earth, there are circumstances that may cause friends to part. One possibility is some of your close circle may be promoted to a higher sphere, or you may be promoted to a higher level than your close acquaintances. And there are stories where a group of friends would wait until all of them would ascend together, or others where the husband or wife would assist their spouse become more pure and advance to the level where they may be together. And being on a different level doesn't mean all contact is ended, only less frequent. After all, it is challenging for a spirit to visit another spirit on a higher level. And the difficulty lies in the fact that as a spirit advances, they become purer and brighter. The light increases in intensity as one climbs the spiritual ladder. Hence, a lower spirit can't see or only barely detects a higher spirit because of the brightness emanating from their body. The brilliance and the light is uncomfortable. So Zadal writes about how he met two friends of his in Book 2 in the book Life Beyond the Veil. He tells the Reverend Vale Owen how comrades in one sphere may be temporarily separate while the other one or more climb higher in the next spiritual sphere. He relates his own personal experience. He starts by describing how he's walking to a temple along a steep path up a mountain. This is what he said. Here and there along the path, ascending, are shrines set a little off the way like those in many lands of earth. And as I stood before one of these, a little removed, I covered my eyes with my hands, and thus stood a while to commune with him who of his life gives strength to us to follow after him in this heavenly road. Thus it was that I did not hear when some drew near me until their steps were present with me on the path behind. Then they ceased, and I, having finished my offering, turned and saw those whose light showed me of their degree, that it was not mine, but higher in the spheres. So I bowed myself to them and stood with my eyes to look upon the ground and waited for them to tell out their will and purpose with me. Now, this is what's so exciting about the books by Reverend Vale Owen. I've read in other spiritualist literature, most notably in Andre Louis series of books, where spirits on the higher level are treated with the utmost deference, right? Being a Republican, the definition, not the American political party, at heart, the thought of genuflecting anyone because of their status, kind of upsets me. After all, why humbly bow to those who have been born in their station and have done nothing to earn the courtesy of showing respect? But when you think about it and you understand the spirit world, I would not hesitate to demonstrate my admiration for a person I truly thought was superior to me. Superior to me in demonstrating love and kindness, assistance to those less fortunate, or devotedly gave themselves to the better mankind. For instance, if St. Francis of Assisi were alive today, I would not pause to bow before him in reverence to his contribution to our society. Therefore, knowing that a spirit may only ascend through their dedication to love, charity, fraternity, and honesty, plus their demonstration of actively assisting mankind on Earth or people on other planets, I and others should have no problem with showing respect. And more, being ready to follow any request they may have for me, since their utmost priority is always to push the good ahead and educate the ignorant. So, Zabdal continues, but I stood for long and they did not speak to me. So making bold from the silence of them, I raised my eyes and looked upon them, first at the girdle of the robes to understand of what order they may be. I detect this in the books, a lot of like diadems and robes and almost like, different uniforms, so you know where they came from. Thus I understood they were of those messengers who attend their chief on his journeyings, both, since they were, as you would call them, aide-de-camps to their leader. Now here's the second salient fact about the spirit world in Zabdal's story of meeting higher spirits. The presence of a type of uniform or signs of an office or status in belts or other forms for spirits belonging to different groups. And this is not overtly mentioned in the series of Andre Louis books. But the presence of uniform is referenced in Yvonne Prier's book, Memoirs of a Suicide. So from this, one can detect why uniforms are so prevalent on Earth, right? Because incarnates naturally gravitate towards how life is ordered in the spirit world. Hence, the pride in belonging to an order or specific function follows from our hidden desires brought over from our time in the spirit world. Waiting for some response from the higher spheres who encountered Zabdal on his path, he decides to take the initiative. This is what Zabdal then said. Then, they still continuing in silence, I looked upon their faces, and they were aglow with smiling and amusement, was not lacking in their smile. And so I steadfastly gazed upon them, and at first I could discern little, for it was no easy matter that I should penetrate to the radiance shimmering around them to see what features I knew them or not. But catching some of their power, and as a matter of at such times, I did at length come to a knowledge of their countenances. Then I understood they were two old comrades who, when we did service near to the earth plane, had fought for souls and won them out of the darker regions into the light of the presence. And I had been their minister then and their companion. Two old friends. Zabdal was talking about two old friends that Zabdal actually used to lead in efforts to help souls ascend from the lower region. This perfectly demonstrates that each rises as they are able to learn. One may ascend rapidly, while others may slowly climb the ladder to higher spheres. Probably like me, I'm very slow. It makes no difference, for we are all treated with love and respect in all levels of earth. No one is forced to move upwards, for your free will is and at all times respected. One could dally at a certain heavenly stage for as long as one likes. The impetus to graduate to the next level lies on your shoulders. This is why I really want to get people to read about Spiritism, because the more you understand that we are the commanders of our own fate. Now, I say that, and yet we also know that our life is predetermined. We're going to have these predetermined episodes, right? So on one matter, are we really commanders of our own fate in a day-to-day process and in this life? Not much, right? But we are masters of our own fate in our attitude, in our character, in our choices within these trials, because the better we perform and the more we take bad and good things and we learn from them, we are really creating our next life, right? We're creating our next life with this. Another interesting revelation is that the higher spirits imparted power to Zabdal. This demonstrates the capabilities of spirits higher than us. They are able to marshal their will to focus power upon other spirits or objects as they see fit. So finally, Zabdal recognizes his two old friends who were waiting patiently, expectantly for him to realize who they were. And they came to me when they saw the dawning recognition in my eyes, and taking each a hand in his, we went together up the hill, ascending on towards the temple plateau. They kissing me first on one cheek, and so imparting further of the strength to be and to converse with them. Oh, the bliss and great pleasure of that walk, when they who had been advanced beyond my present estate spoke first of old times and service together, and gradually leading came to present times in my own sphere. And then we spoke in sequence of their own more bright and glorious, to what soon perhaps I could be called. So the pleasure of their company is apparent in the words written by Zabdal. So is the lack of any envy or jealousy of his new friends' stations, right? This is because all are advanced according to their own time and merits. There's no favoritism. One is ready or not. When the time comes, graduation is imminent. This is how a true meritocracy functions, where every individual concentrates on their improvement instead of focusing their energies on political gamemanship. This is why the spirit world, this is why we want, after our physical life on earth, to rise up above. We don't want to be into the lower zone, because the lower zone is everything like earth is, right? It's the envy, it's jealousy, it's sarcasm all the time. It's all of those things. And as you get higher and higher, it's support, it's love, it's caring, it's harmonious. And yet it is still, it's not like something frightening where everyone is stuck into this little, where you all have to be the same, you have to think the same. No, that's the brilliance, absolute brilliance of the spirit world and how God created us, is he lets all of us have our free will, our own personality. So how we are in our personality, how good we are, we all kind of show it differently. He didn't make robots or automatons, right? God made us all have our free will, but to have, and also enabled us to have this great power. But in order to have this great power, we can't have bad, primitive emotions or feelings. And that's why we're here on earth. Get those out of there. Make our personality so we get rid of those emotions and feelings. And when we have that much power, right? Would you want anybody with that much power? Being someone like, who gets mad easy? I don't think so. That's why we're here on earth. So I want to thank everybody who was on the program today, this Sunday, April 29th. I want to again ask people first is to really get into Spiritism, the Spirits book. To hear more about Spiritism, get on Kardec Radio. Download it on your iPhone or your Android phone. And then what I'm talking about here is I have this whole section on YouTube where I'm taking every one of these. And I even have a Spirits in the Spirit Universe section where everything is recorded. All these streaming videos are recorded in my YouTube channel, NW Spiritism. You look it up on YouTube, or go to my my blog site. Well, thank you, Adriana and Val, and I hope you enjoyed that. Tell your friends, share this video, share other videos you see on Kardec Radio, or other articles you see. Help spread the word, help educate and people. So the more they can read, it may not work at first, right? May not work very well. And I've talked to many people and they look at me like, yeah, sure. But you never know, that little spark is there, because I was talking to a person, a spiritist from Brazil. He came in Seattle. I met him on a Saturday. And, we were talking about, if we can just get the name of Allan Kardec, our Spiritism out there, because these people, they come from the spirit world and they know about Spiritism. And maybe we just get them to recognize, that word or that face or whatever. So anyway, we each have to try our little bit. So again, thank you so much for everybody being on this program. And we will be here next week at the same time. I'll put the end credits on. Thank you.
I would like to thank everyone for listening to our program on Kardec Radio, and to point you in the direction to find more information about the spirit world around us. You can visit my blog at www.nwspiritism.com. Again, that is www.nw as in Northwest Spiritism.com. And if you are ever in the Northwest, I certainly would welcome to have you come to our meeting on Bainbridge Island near Seattle in the state of Washington. Many blessings to all of you, and please continue to explore Spiritism and the spirit world around us.